The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Leadership Talks. This is Paul Ragusa. I'm the editor for the publication. I'm very happy to have Steve Birkmeier. He is VP Sales and Business Development for Arteco. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we dive into the questions, I just wanted to give you a minute to tell us about the company.
Yeah, for sure. So Arteco is a video management software company. We actually got our start in the late 80s in industrial automation. And over the years, we developed patents in machine vision analytics. And really our first movement into the world of video security was taking machine vision analytics and applying it to video. So kind of that first wave of video analytics around 2002, 2003. Over the years, we really separated out from the hardware, identified as a VMS company, but our focus has always been about the event. With video analytics, it's always been what happens when something important happens. What type of action can we take once we identify what's important to the customer? We've kind of parlayed that over the last 4 years into focusing on all security devices generate alarms. Why are we just focused on video? And we've really become kind of a central event aggregator that gives you video verification across a myriad of devices. So all of your traditional, access control, intrusion, fire, but also expanding out into things like building automation or point of sale marketing applications and things like that. So more from an operational standpoint.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, that's good to hear. All right, so for today's webcast, we're going to look at the potential for the cannabis market. So let's dive right in. Why is the cannabis market emerging as a major vertical, for security manufacturers and integrators?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really, two reasons, and there's nothing really, too mysterious about it. On the first hand, these video security is a requirement by the states for compliance, and compliance is really, the key to success for these facilities. So on one hand, it is required, and on the second hand, you have more and more states coming online, from various levels of production. So currently there's 9 states across the country that are adult or what's called recreational or adult use and medical use. There's 22 states that are medical only, and then there's an additional 15 states that are CBD, which is cannabidiol, which is kind of like a non-psychoactive component that all comes from cannabis. So, when you think about it, there's only 5 states in the U.S. that don't have some sort of level of production here.
Wow.
Those 2 factors of, the states, having this requirement for compliance, or the facilities having the requirement for compliance, plus the number of states that are coming online, it just means capacity is up. So right now is a really good time to kind of get a hold of the needs of this market, especially for applications for a national footprint.
Yeah, and I would imagine they have special needs. What are some of the challenges I guess growers face in this vertical market?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, compliance is the key to success. In each state, has kind of varying levels of compliance, but at the end of the day, this is a business, right? So these producers are facing challenges with, not just with security, but building automation, production machinery, shrinkage, and quality control. So what we're seeing is a lot of blending of these technologies in security, logistics, automation, that are helping the growers meet these challenges. So you have to think about it. Yeah, it is security, but there's also operational challenges for a successful business.
Yeah, and does that also include the places where they're growing the plants? Is there high video surveillance going on in those areas as well?
It's an excellent point, Paul. There's 2. You really have to look at this market as kind of 2 separate submarkets in a way. On one side, you have the production facility, which is also known as grows, and then you have the retail side, which is known as dispensaries. And they have very different needs. So they should have separate approaches from a security standpoint. On the growth side, we're seeing, very technologically advanced applications. We're seeing that layered approach I mentioned, where they're using video analytics, they're using access control, license plate recognition, in some cases face recognition and perimeter security. So it's a very advanced security environment. On the dispensary side, we're seeing a little bit more traditional approach, where we have the VMS integrated with access control and intrusion. There's also a big need for offsite monitoring, whether it be video, in most cases video monitoring services, as well as cache and product transit services. So what's very interesting, in my opinion, is we're seeing more and more SIs are kind of customizing their service portfolio to accommodate these needs.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, and this may be a dumb question, but is there a certain period of time that video footage, for example, is required to be saved for compliance purposes?
For sure, yeah, and it does vary from state to state, but we're seeing, typically is about 6 months.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you kind of meeting that challenge? What are you using for storage, for example?
Well, sure, yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that we're doing it from a technology standpoint. H.265 from a video compression standpoint is really alleviating the how much storage you need to achieve that mark. So that's one way that we're approaching it. But then even on the grander scheme, with network storage arrays, there's a lot of different things that we can do to kind of prolong the storage while reducing the cost.
Right, and then being able to access that video footage. I know you do a lot on the analytics side. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, certainly. So the nice thing about video analytics is, the whole point, of video analytics as it is in today's application, for the most part, is about resource management. If you think about the purpose of the camera, what the actual scene, what that camera is looking at, it has a general purpose, and 90% of the time that purpose isn't taking place. So the nice thing about video analytics is it's going to, streamline, it's going to catalog what we call video events in a very easy, retrievable way, that instead of having to go back and try to figure out what's happened, now you have an event line in your event log, and you can just click on that and review that information. You can also receive push notifications to your phone that an event took place. You just click on that push notification, and it plays that video snippet for you. So it's all about kind of understanding, what's the importance of that camera. Let's focus in on it. Let's give the customers situational awareness, and in the end of the day, make it much more streamlined.
Yeah. And what are some of the other factors that should be considered when trying to secure these facilities in this market?
Hold on just one second. So I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing you there just for a second, Paul.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, are there some other factors? I know you covered many already, but are there any other factors that should be considered when trying to secure these type of facilities?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the security, it's, as I mentioned, it's a layered approach. There's, if you consider like access control, what we're seeing is, if someone gets in, you're controlling who's entering or leaving the facility at all access points. But if I were to take your credential and I'm not supposed to be there, if I get further back into the facility, we'll set up face recognition at checkpoints. So we have a real-time detection tool that's going to detect people who are walking through who are not in a database. From a security standpoint, it's all about approaching, a layered approach from the technology and having those work together. The nice thing about video event management is it ties all those events into one common place and gives you that video verification. But it's not just the security, that I think is the really exciting part. It's also the operational applications that can be tied into the video platform. So, for example, when we talk about compliance, one of the big thing is you have to track and trace these plants throughout their cultivation process. So you may use a software for track and trace, which is known as seed to sale software, and there's many different options out there in the market. But for the first time, we have integrated seed to sale, so we're getting video time-stamped events of this plant as it goes from the cloning process all the way through production. So if there's ever a question from a compliance, that's all searchable data that we can put into the system and go back and have a video event associated to that stage of the cultivation process. So this is really exciting, is how we can use this different technology in tandem with the video requirement that they have to have. So.
Okay, and then do you get involved in helping with any of the systems that they use to grow and control the atmosphere, that kind of thing within these facilities? Do you get
Yes.
involved in that at all?
Yeah, and that's another really cool part of it is with the building automation. So you have temperature controls, right? You have humidity, you have electrical consumption. All of these things are factors that can be ultimately tied into the success of that particular grow. So with this integration, now we can receive real-time alarms from those building automation devices or output triggers into the video platform and give you that video verification. So that's kind of one of the exciting parts about it, is you have the layered approach of the security, but you're also layering from an operational effectiveness side and tying it all into the video.
And I would imagine that's a big opportunity for integrators, for example, providing additional intelligent solutions. I mean, you already touched on quite a few here that could benefit the cannabis market. Would you say that's accurate?
100%. It's what we're seeing is a lot of different approaches. Not everyone is fully taking all of these different levels approach, but it is available. And with when we look at the market right now, what we're seeing is the major investors in this market are ag tech and biotech. So these are industries that are heavily involved from a technological standpoint, and that's really taking this to a much higher level on the integration side.
Okay, good. And I wanted to go back to something you touched on earlier about integrating multiple systems at these facilities, having them work together to ensure security. Can you get more into that? Are you getting a demand from these customers to have that type of system, that type of platform that could bring all these systems in and be, looked at, controlled?
100%. Yeah, the primary is access control and video, and giving you those video-based alarms, and then very tied into that is the seed to sale tracking software. And you have to understand, seed to sale is kind of track and trace, which is part of warehouse management. So Arteco has been working in logistics and warehouse management for a long time. Where in those cases you're tracing, it's very similar. You're tracking products throughout the warehouse and different levels of transportation and things like that. So it was a very kind of natural progression for us to take this software, which is the track and trace software, and tie it into the cultivation process. So I would say probably the most prominent integrations that we're seeing are the license plate recognition, the access control, face recognition and video on the security side, and then also intrusion. So that kind of whole group. And then on the operational side, the seed to sale tracking, as well as the building automation. So as I mentioned, your temperature, your humidity, your electrical, and in your manufacturing machinery, if there's any sort of issue with the production machinery, that can be trigger an alarm as well.
Okay, great. Now, how about in terms of, like, say, other integrators are looking at this market? Are you seeing, and I hate to use this pun, I'm sorry, but incredible growth? Is it going to continue, or is it leveling off? Is it just you see this as a booming market? Can you talk a little bit about the potential for the market overall for integrators and manufacturers, of course?
It's a very interesting time, in my opinion. I think the California coming online from an adult use standpoint was a real kind of bellwether for the market. We're seeing now states like Massachusetts and most likely states like Michigan that will switch from just medical use to adult use as well. In my opinion, now is not only is it an extraordinary high growth market, and there's definitely sources that you can look at from a market statistics standpoint that point to that, but it's also a great market from a positioning standpoint, because kind of all signs are pointing to this moving forward on a all state standpoint. And then you think about just this week there was the news with Canada. So it's very timely. Canada is now, for those of you who didn't catch the news, Canada is now has voted for recreational cannabis use on a national level. So there's a lot of things happening, and the world's kind of progressing towards this area. There are still challenges. There's definitely definitely, if anyone would be kidding you if they said that there weren't challenges in this market. And a lot of it has to do with how banks are very tentative in their approach, from a financing standpoint, from a cash management standpoint, from a banking standpoint. But we're just, as these laws continue to kind of progress and different states come online, I think we'll continue to see higher growth.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point there. And many may not be aware of this. Is this generally a cash only business right now because of the whole fear, with the feds and all that?
I mean, that's a way of putting it. I mean, I think technically it's not just cash only. But okay. What you have is the large, national banks, will not, and maybe it doesn't necessarily even have to be national, but it's a very kind of sticky issue for the banks to be involved, because of how things cross. You can't move any money from state to state. So there are some challenges. I'm definitely not an expert on the financial aspects of it, but there are definite challenges with it.
Yeah, just curious. And then I wanted to go back to one area that I thought was interesting. Just that we have another minute, so I thought I'd get another comment from you on it. The whole the whole data play. You have so much data that you're producing, and I know you mentioned you do a lot on the operational side, helping warehouses, for example. Is there a room here for to provide operational savings, efficiencies, that kind of thing, business intel?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. So I mean, once again, remember how I mentioned that there's really two different markets from an approach standpoint. And when you look at the dispensaries, you really need to kind of consider them more on the retail side application. But we're also seeing, kind of, I don't want to say chains, but we're seeing, the same company is opening up multiple retail outlets or multiple dispensaries. So with that, now you're kind of opening it up to a whole different part of the of the intelligent video portion, which is, marketing data. So, we have something called the marketing platform, Arteco marketing platform, or AMP, which is, completely designated not for security, but for using video analytics to determine, how many people are in the facility, in the store, what times of the day, days of the week, how does that relate to their point of sale metadata? So what products are being purchased, and how does that relate to how many people are in the facility at the same time? So conversion rates, and that's a whole different, application that I can see in the future. You'll be able to compare one dispensary versus another dispensary, and really have some meaningful marketing data there.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, Steve, we're out of time. I could talk about this topic with you for hours, so I may have to get back on the phone with you at another time.
Would love
thank
to
you, Steve.
anytime. Yeah, it's something I'm
That's
very
great.
passionate about. So, Paul, I'd just like to thank you and all your listeners, and yep, would love to talk more anytime.
All right. Take care, everyone, and tune in next week for another Leadership Talks. Thank you.